Enter the Stars, CERN, the birthplace of the internet. And it all began around Inquire, a personal database of people and software models. What is Inquire? A software project, a simple hypertext program that was based on a how-to book called Inquire Within Upon Everything. They talk about it was suggestive of magic, but not only that, it was based off of the next cube. This is the black cube, and these are the origins of the World Wide Web. Nextcube was the very first web server. Why did they choose a black cube as a web server, the very first web server? Because this is all about the black cube on the North Pole of Saturn. For everything that God does that is good, the enemy has an evil counterpart. And just as the New Jerusalem is 12,000 furlongs by 12,000 by 12,000, the next cube is also 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches. These are the roots of the World Wide Web, the very first server. The New Jerusalem will be a golden cube with pearl gates, 12, all the dimensions, the same height, width, and length. The black cube is the evil counterpart. You see, in 1980, 10,000 people were working at CERN with different hardware, software, and individual requirements. They were doing things with email and file exchange, working on all these projects. CERN being ground zero for all of the countries of the world to come together in this scientific goal to split these particles. And they needed a web system to connect all of these various parts. But something very strange is going on with this, and that is the fact that these programs, infrastructure, and projects are all named after pagan gods. And there's a reason for this. You see, the first protocols that were used, HTTP, has deeper and darker meanings. Hypertext markup language, HTTP is Hotep, the Egyptian god. Yes, HTTP is Hotep. What is Hotep? It is a place where things are served. It's an offering, just like a server. The black cube server. The food and goods on which a dead soul was supposed to subsist during the afterlife. And this is the documentary, Dark Truth, Dark Matter. All of the information we've gathered to this point regarding CERN and the origins of the World Wide Web. We're going to look at CERN. We're going to look at Cineglobe, which is this is the entity that is putting on the film festival that is culminating March 29th, the 88th day of the year. And there's free entry for people ages 8 to 88. So you know that they know exactly what is going on. The closing filming screening is a documentary called The Circle. And it's all about the people that live above the Large Hadron Collider. There's several communities underneath this 27-kilometer Hadron Collider. We're going to take a look at this trailer, which is 33 seconds long. This is Cineglobe's promotional trailer. And look at the screenshot. Right off the bat, it's Antarctica. How much controversy has there been surrounding Antarctica? And it's curious because look around the edge and you can see the darkness all around the edge here. This almost looks like the global warming aspect that they're trying to portray here. Synglobe, the film festival that introduced the film Symmetry on the 24th of March. Ages 8 to 88, this film festival also includes The Circle on the closing day, a documentary about the people that live above the Large Hadron Collider. Alright you guys, we're going to decode this real time. First we get the Antarctic landscape here, okay? Is what this looks like. And then we get the carousel. I believe this represents the carousel of life. That's like a clock tower in the ceiling of that carousel. We have the gas masks. They had a lot of gas scares during World War II. The clock strikes 12. More Antarctica references sprinkled in throughout. Then of course we saw them spraying down Fukushima. And here's more Antarctica references. Supplies being delivered. And Lucifer fell like lightning from heaven. Aurora Borealis, North Pole. "88 keys on the piano. Back to the carousel. Time, splitting time, exploding time. The hourglass. That's their whole goal of CERN, you guys. Spiral staircase. This is representative of time as well. The torus field. The apple. The Coriolis. Some type of bomb goes off. This next scene, you're going to see the bees. And that's what we are, you guys. We live in the hexagon, which is a three-dimensional cube. Wow, that looks like Egypt. And we also saw the Eiffel Tower. We found alignments in this artist's depiction that's featured here. It's the Synglobe trailer. Shows the Great Pyramid here on the right, and it shows the Eiffel Tower. And I'm going to show you that alignment and show you that in fact there is an alignment between these two objects. Look at the Eiffel Tower. I put this dead center to the center of the Eiffel Tower. Now we're going to go to the Great Pyramid in Egypt. And this is unbelievable. Look at this. Look at this alignment there. Look at this alignment. Looks like another planet almost. That looked like a moon. The word time backwards actually is emit. And then the cryptic closing, time app. And then this looks like a pyramid, or the letter A. Unbelievable. And Antarctica somehow fits into this a big picture. So they are going to mess with time, and that's what we saw in this video. The sun worshippers. Okay. Now the first thing that we need to do here is establish that the CERN program in all of its affiliates programs throughout the last several decades, many of these programs were named after the gods. So it would make sense then that CERN would represent Cernunnos. Okay, we're going to start with Caesar because he was the first one. This is Caesar, and obviously you can see that the spelling is wrong. When looking at this image, let's view this image here. Let's blow it up for those of you on cell phone. This is Caesar. Okay, And let's read the description about what CERN is. On December 18, 1963, the first beam circulated in the CERN electron storage and accumulation ring, acronym for CERN. Now, December 18th is Saturnalia. December 18th is Saturnalia. So you're wondering, what does Saturnalia have to do with CERN? Well, the two are closely linked. This is from the Saturnalia website for Wikipedia. It says here the day marked the dedication anniversary of the Temple of Saturn in the Roman Forum in 497 BC. When Julius Caesar had the calendar reformed because it had fallen out of synchronization with the solar year, 2 days were added to the month, and Saturnalia fell on 17 December. It was felt, however, that the original day had thus been moved by 2 days, and so Saturnalia was celebrated under Augustus as a 3-day official holiday, encompassing both dates. Therefore, Saturnalia falls on December 17th through the 23rd. And here it says, Av Caesar lo Saturnalia, hailing Claudius as the new emperor after the assassination of Caligula. Okay, this is central to the theme of Caesar. Caesar and Saturnalia are linked. And that's why on December 18th, the second day of Saturnalia, the first beam circulated in Caesar. This was in 1963. Let's move on. Minerva. This is a CERN masterclass. Let's read about this. Tool for students to learn more about the Atlas experiment at CERN. And we're going to talk about that experiment as well. It is based on a simplified setup of the Atlas event display, Atlantis, another name of where the gods lived, which allowed users to visualize what is happening in the detector. The aim is to look at Atlas events and try to recognize what particles are seen in the detector. There are tutorial events, then a selection of events to categorize, and finally a search for the Higgs. The project is a joint venture between the Rutherford Appleton Laboratory and the University of Birmingham. So this is an advanced masterclass educational program, Minerva. But Minerva is also a goddess. I wrote some notes here because I didn't want to leave anything out. But Minerva, the goddess, is the goddess of wisdom. So it makes sense that the CERN program would name an educational course after her name, because these are the people they worship. Now, she's the goddess of wisdom, arts, trade, and strategy, born with weapons from the head of Jupiter. Okay, this goes on. Let's read about Minerva. They got pictures of her. They've got temples to Minerva. Here's the Temple of Minerva in Tunisia. Now, the Romans celebrated her festival from March 19th to March 23rd. Here's the Bavarian Illuminati. The third degree of the Bavarian Illuminati was called Minerval, or Brother of Minerva, in honor of the goddess of learning. CERN educational program. Minerva, the goddess of learning. Later, this title was adopted by the first initiation of Aleister Crowley, the known worshiper of Satan. This is our CERN Hadron Collider. Minerva is depicted with owls. We talked all about what the owl means. The owl eyes in the night sky being our prison, locked away from heaven, and them worshiping that prison. Because the owl eyes in the night sky is the star spin that we see at the equator. We've shown you guys that many times on this channel. And look how sick this is. Minerva is displayed on the Medal of Honor. Sacrifice. Because that's their highest degree of sacrifice is war. That's how they get the most sacrifice, the most bang for their buck. They make up these false conflicts, and then they send men into sacrifice. And then they have the gall to put the freaking symbol of this onto the Medal of Honor. Those are the main references. We saw it with our own eyes. Bohemian Grove, Bavarian Illuminati. It's right there, hiding in plain sight. Let's continue on with this. Sickness. Now, this is Atlas, another CERN project named after a god. Collaboration, the group of physicists who built and now run the detector was formed in 1992 and proposed Eagle and Ascot Collaboration's merger efforts to build a single general-purpose particle detector for the Large Hadron Collider, called ATLAS. The design was a combination of two previous experiments and also benefited from the detector research and development that had been done for the superconducting supercollider. The ATLAS experiment was proposed in its current form in 1994 and officially funded by the CERN member countries in 95. All the countries in the world are wandering after this beast. They're all giving money to it. It is the hallmark of their careers to be able to go work for the beast. They even call the detector components being shipped to CERN and assembled in Atlas in the Atlas experiment pit. They call it the freaking pit. The abyss. This is Atlas in mythology. He held up the earth. He is a Titan god of endurance and astronomy, condemned to hold up the sky for eternity. Although associated with various places, he became commonly identified with the Atlas Mountains. He was a son of Titan. Next, on deck, Petra, another CERN project. Let's read about Petra very briefly. New third generation synchrotron radiation source. Petra 3 accelerated its first beam on April 16th at 10:14 a.m. The positron bunches were injected and stored in 2.3-kilometer accelerator for the first time. The start of the operation of the beam includes a 2-year upgrade that converted the storage ring Petra into a world-class X-ray radiation source. The most powerful light source of its kind, Petra 3 will offer excellent research possibilities. So it's all its rest. Nobody knows what these people are doing here. They're firing beams is what they're telling us they're doing, which is ridiculous. They're not firing beams. They may be firing beams, but there's a reason why they're firing these beams. And it ain't what they're telling us. Petra. So what else is Petra? Let's read about Petra. Let's pull up some notes on Petra, because this is going to blow you away. You know all this talk about Baal worship, and the Arch of Palmyra? Well, apparently Palmyra and Petra are related, because Palmyra grew in importance and attracted the Arabian trade away from Petra, and then Petra declined. So they're blaming Palmyra as the reason for Petra's decline. And of course, Palmyra has the Arch of Palmyra. It also talks about a semicircular arch. Here, series of tomb fronts, which terminate in a semicircular arch, a feature derived from North Syria. This is where Palmyra is, in North Syria. So this is Petra. This was in several of the movies. This was in the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark. One of the Raiders of the Lost Ark installments. They showcased Petra because it's this amazing cutout right out of the rock.
So now this brings us down to Cernunnos. Now that I've established the case, now it is not a stretch to assume that they could be talking about Cernunnos when they're referencing CERN. Why? Because Cernunnos is the Lord of the Rings. Let's read about Cernunnos. Let's pull this up here so I don't forget anything. Now, I was shocked to discover Janus in Cernunnos description. Often depicted as Janus, the Cernunnos type included Janus-like god. Janus was the two-headed god, and we showed you the Janus Fund, and now they show the two-headed god. Janus is Cernunnos, is Baal. It's all related together. Now, Cernunnos carries these torque rings. They show it here. Let's blow this up. These are the rings people can buy to put on their wrists. Okay. This is what you're putting on your wrist when you do that. You're putting this torque ring from the ring of Cernunnos, which is probably why Saturn has rings on it. Okay. You guys will recognize that. What else do we have here? Let's look at some more of these torque rings. It says both antlers have torques hanging from them. Here's another picture of Cernunnos. Here he is here. He's got these antlers in the early growth stages, they say here, with these rings around his ears. Faunus, the green man. Cernunnos, the horned god. Lupercalia, the worship of Pan. And Faunus, Faunus, the horned god. Lupercalia, February 13th through the 15th. The Pillar of the Boatmen, depicting the only known image of Cernunnos, was found in the bowels of Notre Dame, in an island on the Seine River, in France, amongst temples, and was then moved. Here we get the only images of this horned god, as depicted here. But we know who the horned god really is. And we know what these rings represent. The rings of CERN. They call these rings hanging from them torques, which kind of sounds like an orc. The wires of CERN twisted into a giant ring. The word torque, to twist, comes from this word, the Coriolis effect, the torque, the torus. They're saying that Cernunnos is related to Mercury. Mercury. We talked all about Mercury and what that means. Merchandise, mercantilism. It's our money system is Mercury, you guys. That's how they control all of us, through money. This Pater is also related. All this goes back to ancient Roman pagan worship, rituals, sacrifice, and their satanic holy days, which have become now our modern holidays. Scholars have sometimes compared him functionally to Greek and Roman divine figures such as Mercury, Dis Pater. Now, this is ancient Celtic culture as well. It says here there have been attempts to find the CERN root in the name of Conall Cernach, the foster brother of the Irish hero in the Ulster cycle. In this line of interpretation, Cernach is taken as an epithet with a wide semantic field. meaning angular, victorious, bearing a prominent growth. This goes on because in neo-paganism, it says here in Wicca and other forms of neo-paganism, a horned god is revered. And this is our CERN Hadron Collider. This divinity syncretizes a number of horned or antlered gods from various cultures, including Cernunnos. The horned god reflects the seasons of the year in an annual cycle of life, death, and rebirth. In the tradition of Gardnerian Wicca, the horned god is sometimes specifically referred to as Cernunnos or Cernuno.
And are they looking at matter, or are they looking at time? This is the DESI accelerator in Germany. And back in 1984, there was a 80-cent stamp commemorating this accelerator that is in the shape of an 8, or the Vesica Pisces, one and the same. And this is the particle accelerator in Brookhaven. And it too is shaped like a figure 8. As you can see here, we have the O part of the 8 there and another one there. And this is Fermilab on the 88-degree parallel. And Fermilab, as you can see here, is also shaped like an 8. Now, 2 of the accelerator rings at DESI were named after Petra and Hera. Now, Petra is a church, an engraved ancient city, and in this church are the intertwined accelerator rings in the shape of a figure 8 on the mosaic in the floor. An ancient Aramaic people called the Nabateans were the ones who inhabited ancient Petra. The Nabateans were the ones who made this floor, and on their ancient coin we see the Vesica Pisces and the figure 8. Now this is fascinating, you guys. Many of these coins were struck in the year of Jesus' birth. But the Nabatean alphabet contains a character that looks like the figure 8 infinity symbol called Simcath. And if you look at the root of Simcath, it is the Phoenician word for sin or sign. So now we finally have the link between the word sin and the sign symbol of infinity. We also see the other symbols associated with this character, one being the satanic cross, ascribing all sin to Satan. We also see other infinity-like symbols and rings. And Hera is the wife and one of the 3 sisters of Zeus. And on her head she wore a polos, which is a ring.
And who were the Nabateans specifically, and these myths they talked about? Well, they worshiped the daughters of Allah, Uzzah and Manat. There are also connections with Kronos, time of Mithraism, which was the father of Hera, as we just saw, in Zoroastrian mythology, and Allah's other daughter, Uzzah. In Judaic and Christian lore, Uzzah has been also used as an alternative name for the angel Metatron, the cube of time. In the Sefer HaHashak, more commonly is referred to as either the seraphim Semyaza, demon, or as one of the 3 guardian angels of Egypt, Rahab, Mastema, and Duma, that harried the Jews during the Exodus. As Semyaza in legend, he is the seraph tempted by Ishtar into revealing the explicit name of God, and was thus burned alive and hung dead down between heaven and earth as the constellation Orion. And in the 3rd book of Enoch and in the Zohar, he is one of the fallen angels punished for cohabitating with human women and fathering the Anakim.
And
Finally, this is CERN, and of course, it is the most popular accelerator in the world, and it is in the shape of a ring, of course. But inside of CERN, we see the 8-sided octagonal central feature. 8 again, the 8 of time.
And when we read Daniel 7:25 in the original Aramaic language, it says, "And he shall speak out great words against Eliah, which is the supreme God, and shall wear out the saints, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time." You look at the word times in the Aramaic, it means a set time or season. They will seek to change the set times, and the seasons in the time of the end.
We're going to look at Hierophant. Now you know what this ring might mean. Now you know what this ring might mean. From Hierophant, how it's prominent, and it looks like a black hole sun, like an eclipse. And then they took the dot from the eye and they moved it over. And now you see how that might be this CERN symmetry. Okay, there's your side by side. Boom. One on the outside, one on the inside. One on the outside of the ring, one on the inside of the ring. But it gets better, because we talked all about Cernunnos being a horned god. Let's blow this up. And there's your horned god with the gold of a god in antlers out here on the wall in this 2012 animation. Here is your golden ring with the dot outside, which looks exactly like this, right? It's the same thing. They're even positioned the same. And now you see how if you take this dot and you draw a line through the center of the circle, connecting the dot, that it points to Cernunnos on the wall, you see. And after the scene, this girl drops this apple, which is the torus field, which is what CERN is. It's a giant torus field. And it rolls across the floor and opens up into a lotus flower. And it hits Obama's shoe. Now that CERN has been in the news, there was a weasel that caused an electric short circuit, 66,000 volts, that went through these wires, according to CERN. And of course, the CERN logo looks like a 666, but this goes far, far deeper. And I'm going to expose that today. And as far as I know, nobody has been able to identify what the weasel means. Pop goes the weasel. Now, for those of you that don't know the story about the weasel, apparently a weasel crawled into the underground CERN labyrinth and chewed through some wires that were carrying 66,000 volts of electricity. The weasel fried, of course, and then the CERN went down. The weasel mentioned in the story of Cernunnos, the weasel mentioned in the ancient story of Cernunnos. This is a book called The Apple Branch, A Path to Celtic Ritual. We just mentioned the Celts in our analysis up to this point, but we're going to read in here about Cernunnos and the weasel. Okay, this is what they were referencing. It says here, the stag, meanwhile, we will place in the south, the place of the underworld and hidden things. We just saw the stag on the wall in Ipetco 2. Precisely when the Cernunnos, abandoned by the goddess in her flower maiden form, enters his own Gemos phase and begins taking on stag-like characteristics. So this is all ancient Celtic ritual, okay? This is what this book is about. There are many other stories that confirm these patterns in Celtic tradition. In Irish mythology, the flower maiden is called Blatnut, little flower. We just talked about the flower, right? We talked about the lotus flower. The shifting allegiance of the goddess is, as we have explained, cyclic. As queen of the underworld, she chooses the Cernunnos figure at Samhain. We talked all about Samhain and how that's related into Halloween and the 5th of November. But as flower maiden, she prefers the Mapanos figure on Beltane. Beltane is Baal. Beltane festival. We've been talking all about that date of sacrifice, Beltane. Gwalchmai, Hawk of May, there's that May Day again, sacrifice, very explicitly associates the figures with Beltane. May 1st. You're asking, where's the weasel fit into all this? Yet another significant detail may link Blatnut with Blodawed. Both may have, upon relinquishing their flower maiden status at the end of the Samos season, taken an animal forms. We know that Blodawed turned into an owl. Remember Minerva's owls? It's all linked in together, you guys. The creature with the prophetic voice from the other world, standing on the threshold between life and death. Standing at the threshold between life and death. The threshold. Behind the spinning stars is heaven, but we can't see them. We can't see heaven. Usually announcing death. We have no story specifically recounting Blatnut's transformation, but in modern Irish, Blatnade is one of the words for weasel. Blatnade is weasel. Blatnade, which is this character we've been talking about, related into Cernunnos. The weasel in Celtic tradition has many of the same fearsome associations with the other world that the owl has. So they fried a weasel to depict the underworld and fearsome associations with the owl. It's all symbolic, you guys. It is sorcery of the highest degree. The weasel has the power over life and death. And there are stories from oral tradition about women with magical powers turned into weasels. As far as I know, no one else is covering this. And again, this video should go viral, but it won't, because people are asleep. Thus, it seems very likely that Blatnut's story may, in versions now lost to us, once have ended much like Blodawade's. A path to Celtic ritual about this book. Now, could this be a reference to the tree of life? Could this be a reference to the apple that rolled across the floor in this image? The apple that the little girl is holding? The apple branch, I believe, is being depicted here. This is the apple. Here's the branch of the apple. Look at this. This is nuts, you guys. This is just nuts. This apple opens up a new flower. We just read the story about the flower. Okay, it says here, in the apple branch, renowned scholar Alexei Kondratyev combines history, folklore, and language of the Celtic world in a unique guide for understanding its spirituality. He explores the myths, legends, and cultural figures from Bridget to King Arthur, and he explains how the ancient Celtic religion survives in the context of modern Christianity. So now you know why I'm not part of a religion. Discover how to observe the calendar customs from the 6 remaining Celtic nations of Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Cornwall, Brittany, and the Isle of Man. Learn the practices and rituals of the Celtic tradition, including how to organize a Celtic ritual group. Celebrate the phases of the moon. Geez, it's like a guide to witchcraft. And participate in the great quarterly feasts. This is a seminal book which presents seekers with dazzling visualizations and the beauty and power of a vital living path. The apple branch will inspire in everyone a new way of looking at the world.
We're going to take a look at the film Stay Tuned from 1992, the very same year that the first line mode browser released from CERN launched in 1992.
666 channels of heart-pounding, skull-blasting entertainment. Comedy, drama, hot oil aerobics like nothing you ever seen, brother. Unlimited entertainment snatched from the ether and slammed into your brand new 44-inch, 900-line resolution, 3-way expanded matrix Dolby stereo TV right here, Roy.
Pop goes the weasel. 66,000 volts. And of course, the CERN logo looks like a 666.
This film is interesting because it's 88 minutes long. Now, this is all about a game show, and it stars John Ritter. Something's weird on the air, is what we see on the cover here. Now, John Ritter died on 9/11, 2003. Now, first, John Ritter refuses the magic remote control. And as the devil walks out, you see the cross of Jesus here with the 2 thieves on either side, the crucifixion. Now I want you to watch this clip. And you tell me what was being depicted there. CERN is in Geneva, Switzerland. Listen.
They got 24 hours. If they survive that long, we got to send them back. Part of our treaty with the other side. Kind of a Geneva Convention in the war for souls.
This guy plays Crowley. Aleister Crowley. Listen.
I think, Mr. Crowley, it's time for a little field work.
And so you see, we've all been sucked into the World Wide Web of CERN. Now they have these spoofs where they replace the original titles of these TV shows with something very cryptic and evil. Meet the Mansons, MM 1313. Watch.
It's Meet the Mansons.
Obviously, we're dealing with something of supernatural nature here, Diane. I mean, this thing, it did not come from Radio Shack.
Yeah, so you're the smart one. Think of something.
We see 666 and then the building falls. Watch.
The next item we have for you on the Home Shoplifting channel.
The boy is able to reach his parents through this machine he builds. And here you see Proton Accelerator, CERN. Listen.
No, just tell him to release him. Go ahead, tell him. Release the marquee.
You heard him. Get me out of this. What's happening? Who's messing with my programming?
And here the clock cuts away at 44 seconds. Wow, really? Each of the World Trade Center buildings were 110 stories tall, for a total of 220 stories. 22 years after 1979, the towers would fall, and the number 79 is the 22nd prime number. Now I want you to listen to this part.
And just to show you how effective our passive restraint system really is, watch this demonstration at 110 miles an hour, where our driver dummy has the benefit of both a seatbelt and an airbag, while the other dummy has neither one. Neither one?
I can't watch. Switch to mom.
Here we see driving over Miss Daisy.
With filmmaker Bram Conyers, how does it feel to have you film The Circle here at Hot Dogs?
Feels great. It's my first movie, so it's a real big opportunity to show it here in Toronto.
What was the inspiration behind the making of the film?
Actually, I had a dream about it. It started with a dream. I dreamt I was in a black hole, and I wanted to know where that dream came from. And then I think I read something in the newspaper about the Large Hadron Collider. It's a particle accelerator in Geneva where they can create micro black holes. So for me it was interesting to go and take a look there.
What was it like shooting underground when you were filming the particle accelerator?
Now remember, this is going to be viewed on the last day, March 29th, of this film festival.
It was really exciting. We started filming in 2009, and then the particle accelerator was still open for public, so we could go down with a scientist to take a look. And it's really enormous to see these gigantic machine.
Why do you think that people have always had this obsession about the origin of life and where we come from?
I think it's part of mankind. If we would not have that curiosity, we would still be monkeys.
CERNunos. This is CERN, and their whole objective was to use the torus field in CERN to awaken and enlighten artificial intelligence.
What were some of the challenges that you faced making the film?
Maybe the most difficult part about making the film was to actually follow the circle, because you cannot see where the tunnel is above the ground. Sometimes there are tiny landmarks, but sometimes there's nothing. So you have to imagine. We had a big map, and then we had to take some pictures of the map, and then we had to
As above, so below.
It was difficult to be exact on top.
Did you find that your instincts were generally right, that you were generally on top?
I think maybe we were sometimes 100 meters off, but not so much, I think.
Physics people have been talking about this machine, the Large Hadron Collider, the biggest machine ever built by human beings, is finally going to turn on.
Worries me stiff at the moment.
Is finally going to turn on. And after many years of waiting and theorizing about how matter got created and about what the deep fundamental theory of nature is, all those theories are finally going to be tested, and we're going to know something. And we don't know what it's going to be now, but we will know, and it's going to change everything. It's either going to be a golden era. It's either going to be a golden era. It's either going to be a golden era. Or it's going to be quite stark. And I've never heard of a moment like this in history, where an entire field is hinging on a single event. It's taken this long to construct. There are 10,000 people of over 100 nationalities
That includes countries which are mortal enemies of each other, like India and Pakistan and Georgia and Russia and Iran and Israel. All have physicists working on this machine.
And the hope is that we'll see the very famous Higgs particle. But every time we've turned on a new accelerator at a higher energy, we've always been surprised. So the real hope is that we'll see the Higgs, but that there's also something amazingly new.
Why did they do it? Why are we doing it? We actually have two answers. One answer is what we tell people, and the other answer is the truth. I'll tell you both. We actually have two answers. One answer is what we tell people, and the other answer is the truth. I'll tell you, we study particles because just after the Big Bang, all there was particles. And they carry the information about how our universe started and how it got to be the way it is, and its future. At the beginning of the 1900s, it became clear that all known matter, everything that we know about, is made of atoms. And that atoms are made of just three particles: the electron, the proton, and the neutron.
I think people were more excited about this.
If you're in Google, that means that's the world. This is the most important thing today.
This is the first, and this tells us a lot of things. It tells us that the magnetic properties of the machine are good, that the aperture's clear, that the aperture's clear, that the aperture's clear, and there's nothing sticking into the beam pipe anywhere. So it's a very, very encouraging sign and a remarkable progress.
Like 10 minutes into the race, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, I'm only at mile 1. I've got 25.2 miles to go. And if you're thinking that at the start, then you're done. Mentally, you are done. This is what doing discovery physics means. This is what doing discovery means.
Schau, die Luft. Die hält jetzt das ganze Wasser. Das ist schwer. Das ist schwer, die Luft ist stark.
Possibly that and many other particles are still out there and are all part of a much bigger symmetry, a much bigger theory that includes the Standard Model, but much more. The most popular theory is called supersymmetry, or SUSY for short.
SUSY is extremely important for the theoretical community because it solves many mathematical problems with the Standard Model.
And here is the proof of our Creator, hiding in plain sight. Behind the optic nerve of your eye, we have the mother providing life to the child through the retina, through the placenta, inside the child, in the amniotic fluid, in the vitreous humor of the eye. Our world exists, and the child comes through the cervix which contracts and expands, just as the iris of your eye. The baby's head nestled in the crown of the cervix, in the crown of the iris, before being born into sin, through the aperture of life, and behind the optic nerves of your eyes of good and evil. They cross. Jesus was hung on the cross in the pineal position, looked to each eye, to each thief at his side at Golgotha, which means skull. At Golgotha he was crucified. And he turned to one thief and he said, "You will be with me in paradise," as he hung on the cross of the optic nerves of your eyes in the middle of your brain, in the pineal position. And only one eye will survive into everlasting life, and that is the one eye of good. Evil forever eradicated from this planet.
Maybe even the Higgs itself is a random accident that has occurred in our universe and lets life exist, but has no explanation.
On the one hand, we have the direction that we've been on for the last 400 years towards increasing beauty, simplicity, symmetry, and a path that has time and time again paid off with deeper and deeper insights about. On the other hand, we have the idea of the multiverse, which would move us to a real picture not of symmetry and beauty and order, but fundamentally of chaos on enormous.
We were discussing the possibility that we do collisions during the night rather than the planned 9 o'clock.
Good morning, everybody. I propose during the night we try to set up again for higher intensities for 450 GeV collisions, but then we're cut short because we encountered a bug.
Well, everybody wants, from a physics point of view and from being sure, is doing it secretly before and showing it to the media during the day.
Welcome to CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research in Geneva. Welcome to the CERN Control Center.
Aujourd'hui est un grand jour pour les physiciens du monde entier. Les opérateurs du CERN vont tenter en effet pour la toute première fois de réaliser des collisions de particules à une énergie sans précédent.
We may discover additional forces where we may discover additional space dimension. The Higgs boson will make.
We never get access to the deeper theory. All that information could be in the other universes. We may be at the end of the road. That's it. And that means, yeah, actually, almost all of my models are ruled out. Which, all the supersymmetry models, which is pretty cool. I mean, supersymmetry could still be true, but it would have to be a very strange version of the theory. And if it's the multiverse, well, other universes would be amazing, of course. It's amazing that the Higgs, the center of the standard model, the thing we've all been looking for, could actually also be the thing that destroys everything. The creator and the destroyer.